What's up, guys? Today we're working on our 2018 Jeep Wrangler. We're going to be doing front pads. We're going to go ahead and get started here. We're going to get the wheel off. As you can see, these rotors are in pretty rough shape. Um, we're in the Ohio area in the Rust Belt, so these things get rusted pretty quick. I'm going to go ahead and grab my 13 millimeter ratchet wrench. We're going to get this bottom caliper bolt off. Okay, getting it off here. Go ahead and set that to the side. Next thing, I'm going to get my flathead. I'm going to get in here. Go ahead and pull this caliper up. You don't need to take this top bolt out. These things will just slide out. The slide pin, pull that rubber boot back and just slide it right out just like that. I'm going to go ahead and set it up here. If you don't have room to set it somewhere, you get a bungee cord or some kind of strap and kind of just set it up and strap it up somewhere so you're not putting any tension on that brake hose. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and get my old brake pad out of here. Checking them out, see how they look. Of course, they're going to look rough with the rotors worn the way they are. We're actually putting Brembo brakes on this thing, which is not the usual, but in for a treat today with some Brembos. So I'm getting them out here. I want to double check, make sure I got the right pads because there are different options on this as far as size goes. There's I think a 24 millimeter thickness rotor and a 27 millimeter thick rotor. So I'll show you here in a little bit on the video how to measure that to make sure. You will need like a micrometer to measure the rotor. But right now I'm just checking to make sure I got the right paths. Yep, look good. Nothing worse than getting halfway all this stuff all apart and finding out you got wrong parts. So I always like to check beforehand to make sure I got the right parts before I start really tearing stuff apart. Next thing I'm going to do, 21 millimeter, the bracket bolts in the back. Go ahead and get those out. Check. I'll go ahead and pull my caliper bracket off. So next thing we need to do is get this rotor screw out of here. These I drill out because they're essentially useless once you get it out. You'll see I'm going to try to get it out once or twice here. I think it's a T27 Torx bit, and it's seized in place. I didn't want to break my bit, so I gave it a few shots with it, and then I'm going to come back here in a second with my drill. I'm going to go ahead and drill it. 1/4 inch drill bit. Drill right through the middle of it essentially. Okay, it's all drilled out. Now I'm gonna come back with my Torx again, and since it's heated up and I got it centered, I'm gonna give it one more shot, and we got it, and it came loose. I'll go ahead and get that out of there. This is not gonna go back in. These things are absolutely useless once it leaves the factory. So it's gonna go ahead and get it out of there, and I'm not gonna put it back in. If you're OCD or anal about it, you're more than welcome to put it back in there, but it's just they have no use whatsoever. Get my rotor off. You're gonna see the backside of this rotor. It's really rough. You can see that lip there. Yeah. See, I mean, he's not getting any friction on the backside of that rotor at all. So go ahead and get our new rotor out. I'm gonna set it up on here. So I did measure these beforehand to make sure I had the right size. So these are the 24 millimeter thick rotors. And I'm gonna grab my micrometer here in a second and I'm gonna show you. So how to measure it. So this is the thickness is what they're looking for on this one, on this particular model. So I'm going to go ahead and measure the thickness. So you can see 24.9. So that was 24 millimeters. I'm going to measure the old rotor just to show you. So I did measure these beforehand before getting parts, because you do need to know this before you get the parts. And this one's 24.7. So there you go, 24 millimeter thick rotors. You can also use a tape measure if you don't have one of those. You're just going to have to jump on Google, or if you're really good with transferring measurements over, maybe you know what how many inches or equals millimeters. I'll go ahead and get my old hardware off here, because we are replacing the hardware. I'm going to get my wire brush, and I'm going to come back up and I'm going to clean this off where the hardware is. The rust and stuff just sits in there and builds up, so I always clean these off. And also, will over time, that rust will build up, and it'll cause the hardware to sit up higher than it should, and the brake pads will basically get jammed in there, and you don't want that. You want them to move around freely as they should. So cleaning these out is always a good idea. A wire brush, or if you got, a wire wheel on your drill, whatever works for you. And of course, sometimes you'll get caliper brackets that are so rusted up that they need sandblasted. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my caliper bracket bolts back in here, finger tight. You always get everything started with your fingers. Never just jump on it with an impact, unless you like stripping things out and causing more work for yourself. So I got them started. Got my 21 millimeter back. Check. And I always go slow at first, make sure I'm not stripping anything. Check. Check. Okay. What I'm going to do, we're going to go ahead and get our new hardware in. So you can see I've got a few of them snapped in already. These do these do only go in one way, so make sure you pay attention when you take the old hardware out, to make sure you get this new hardware in properly. I always take a flathead screwdriver and I kind of put it in the corners of the hardware, and I kind of hit it like this, kind of seat it in there all the way. You can see. Check. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my new brake pads. See, they're Brembos. Look at that. So pretty. Snap them in. Look at, they're in there nice and free. They're moving around like they should. Looks good. Next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and get these slide pins out, and I'm gonna grease these up. This is an important step. A lot of people skip it. Do not skip this step. It's very important. So we're gonna go ahead and get these slide pins out. As you can see, this bottom one's already kind of a little bit stuck in here. Once these get seized up in there too much, you'll end up snapping them off, and you'll have to replace the caliper, or at least the caliper bracket. See how dirty that is? Again, I'm gonna grab my wire brush. I'm gonna kind of clean it a little bit. So I use high temp grease for these. They do make special brake lube, or it's like a silicone based grease that you can get for these. I don't use that. I just use high temp grease. And I'm gonna take some, and I'm gonna spread it on that top pin as well, and spread it around on there. I'm gonna make sure I got enough on this one, and I'm gonna go ahead and get it back in there. Spin it around a few times, make sure it feels like it's, nice and free, able to move in and out. You always want to make sure that this rubber boot is snapped back in place that's around that. If it's not snapped back in place, water will get inside there, and it will cause it to kind of start rusting and seize up. So make sure that rubber boot's snapped snapped all the way back in place. All right, next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna get the caliper pistons pushed in here. I use C-channel vice grips. You can use the regular C-clamp or a brake tool, whatever you have. This is just what I use. I'm gonna get my old brake pad, and I'm gonna go ahead and start applying some pressure here to get the pistons back in. Everything's moving in as it should, and not seized up or anything, which I wouldn't expect on the 2018, but you never know. So we'll go ahead and get this pressed all the way back in. Shouldn't take too much longer. She is almost good. Check. Okay. See what I'm going to do? I'm going to take my caliper and I'm going to go ahead and slide this top pin back in place. I'm just going to slide it right back in there. Again, make sure that rubber boot snaps back around the caliper pin like it should. Once you get that done, you can go ahead and just slide your caliper back over. Grab your 13mm caliper bolt. Start it by hand. Okay. Get it tight. And that's it. She's pretty much good to go. Thumbs up. Looks good. I'm going to go ahead and roll my wheel over here. I'm going to go ahead and get my wheel back on. Job's pretty simple. We'll be doing the back brakes on this here in a couple weeks, so I'll try to get a video of that so you guys can look for the rear brake video if you're looking to do the rear brakes on these as well. They're pretty simple. Jeeps, at least the brakes on Jeeps are fairly easy to work on. Some other things are not, but yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any questions or anything, leave them in the comments, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And appreciate it if you can send me a subscribe my way. That'd be greatly appreciated. I don't, I make these videos to help you guys out. I'm not really getting a whole lot out of them, but I do it to help other people because I know how it is. Not everybody's got the cash to drop on getting their brakes fixed, or they like doing stuff themselves. So that's why I make these videos. So I'd appreciate it if you could shoot me over a subscribe. Other than that, guys, take care, and we'll catch you on the next one.